Ah, yes, another weekend here as Florida State is getting into the middle of summer recruiting season. Remember now, in this era of college football recruiting, the summer is when the work gets done. And so Florida State is hosting a lot of official visitors and a lot of unofficial visitors over the weekend, beginning on Friday, June the 6th. Michael Langston, senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com, joins me now to break it all down. And we're going to call this three things to watch for this weekend. Michael, first of all, good evening. How are you? And let's get ready to go for another big weekend of Florida State football recruiting.
I'm ready, man. Baseball teams in Oregon hope everything goes good and can get them back to Omaha and maybe they can exercise some demons over there or something or whatnot. But overall, ready to go. 16, I think, official visitors from what I was told, and all of them be on campus probably on Friday morning, and then you'll leave Sunday. So certainly a lot to get into. Certainly, we heard the tough news about an hour ago about Keyshawn Henderson, that canceling. So that's certainly a kick to the gut. But overall, we're just going to push forward and move forward.
So, as you can tell from context clues, everybody, we are recording this on a Thursday, and Michael and I are in the green room, and I went, oh, hell. And he's like, yep, happened an hour ago. Okay, now let's get to the business at hand for kids that might be coming to Florida State. And we want to talk about top flip targets. Florida State
Yeah.
is bringing in quite a few players committed elsewhere that they are working very hard to flip. Who are those kids? What do we need to know?
Yeah, I would say the number one guy is a Noel legacy in wide receiver Devin Carter. He's the son of Dexter Carter, played at FSU. Devin was originally committed to FSU, then went through the process. They were struggling on the field. Eventually, he would commit to Auburn, but he's visiting officially this weekend. I think this is a massive one when you look at it. He's visited FSU two or three times in the spring. He certainly likes what he's seeing when the miles on offense. So I think he loves kind of what's jumping out to him as a receiver, and they need young receivers, so a chance to play early there is, I think, very enticing, and that's one where I think they really just need to nail. Not, I don't think they really need to nail anything with the offense. I think it's more surround around just being him around the players, seeing the comfort, feed the culture of the FSU program, and really just hitting on that stuff because I think overall from an offense standpoint, he's seen enough where he's been to two practices that he knows, like, hey, these guys are going to be good. He's going to be there for FSU Alabama. So this is kind of setting that up with that visit, this visit this weekend. So I think that's certainly one to jump right out to. Four-star offensive lineman Javion Cooper, he's committed to Syracuse. He visited also in the spring. A lot of strong ties to Herb Hand. That's one that I think FSU could get done if everything clicks and goes right. So that's one I'm certainly keeping an eye on. Jazavian Currents is committed to South Carolina. He's a safety that will be officially visiting this weekend. He's certainly a significant one that I think to really keep an eye on, Tom, because they need a safety in this class. They've been really pushing for one, and he's certainly one of the top ones, a four-star, safety that, certainly very high on their board. So I think, some of those, three guys I think really, stand out to me as far as, just the flip guys. With Devin Carter for me, just I think that would move the needle the most if you could flip that one.
It makes sense. And we'll go from now kids that are committed elsewhere to kids that are uncommitted and
Yeah.
are free agents, so to speak, and want to be impressed with the summer tour, the June tour they're doing in terms of official visitors. At Florida State, who's it going to be this weekend that you have your eye on for the uncommitted prospects?
Whew, there is a lot of guys that are going to be on campus this weekend. I won't go through all of them. People can read my preview; it'll be up, I'm sure soon, or people see it probably after we even tape this thing. But certainly be on there. I think wide receiver Brandon Bennett narrowed his list of FSU, Miami, or yeah, FSU, Florida, and Georgia. Miami was excluded, so that was kind of a little bit of surprise. But FSU, Georgia, and Florida. I hear a little bit more about Georgia and Florida. Georgia was one of his most recent visits, but he's very tight with Tim Harris Jr. That's why you brought him in. That he's very good in South Florida. That's a guy that he loves this offense. He's also visited for a spring practice, and I think that's one that they've certainly you'll move things for. American Heritage Kids certainly has ties to Patrick Surtain, so there's ties there with Zay Thomas, who's already at FSU, and several other guys that they already have from American Heritage. So that certainly helps your cause, but I think this weekend, really making a big impression on him is going to be a big deal. I would lean more towards you're competing harder against Florida than Georgia, although Georgia I think is pretty heavily in there. I just feel like in-state teams kind of, there's a little more wiggle room with those teams or a little more momentum with those teams. So certainly a major recruitment this weekend. Two running backs, really talented. One's Carson Baker, four-star out of Langston Hughes in Georgia. That's one they'll be hosting. Jay Lamar, who I like a lot. I've liked this kid since he was a freshman out of Colquitt County. Certainly they've done well at that school, getting Landon Thomas from there. That's a school that they're very active with, and that's one that we've heard different. The thing is, I would say about those two guys, there's been different leaders for each one of those guys. At one point, it was Georgia with Lamar, then it was Clemson. We heard Florida State early on, and then Carson Baker. It was kind of first it was Ohio State. Now we hear more about Florida. I think some picks have been put in, but I would keep an eye on those two guys because their recruitment really fluctuates of where they visit, of who has the momentum. So FSU has a chance to certainly gain momentum there. And the fact is, they want another second running back in this class. They're not in a rush to do it. If I was picking one, that they probably like prioritize the most, I think Carson Baker's one that they're extremely high on, probably a little bit more Lamar, but they'll take either one of them. They're both really good, and they'll have their chance this weekend. I think it's a major weekend. You have a lot of all the guys you're going to have in the 2025 class are there. They could kind of interact with him, really help on that recruitment. You have some guys like Usman Cromo, who's already there. He was recruited by Georgia, committed to Georgia for a while, so that might be able to help FSU with these recruitments, and he can kind of share his experiences and stuff like that. So I think those are two major ones that I'm certainly keep an eye on. There's a lot more coming up. Let me just go through a few of these because there's just so many, Tom. There's a ton of them. I think linebacker T.J. White and Rodney Colton. We've already done a story on Rodney Colton. I think FSU's kind of trending in a positive direction. T.J. White, FSU was the leader early on, but he hasn't really. He's been kind of cool as far as relaxed as far as. I still think it's Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State or main teams, maybe North Carolina. But those are two guys I really believe, Tom, if they click and nail these visits, I think FSU will be the leader coming out of this weekend with those two young men. I think there's certainly a really good chance as far as just to make a big splash. Then you also have four-star Tristan Givens, who visited in the spring, watched to practice. He's a guy that's always been high on FSU. They're a long-time target. They're certainly very much in the picture there. Cornerback Samari Matthews is another one that they're very high on that will also visit this weekend. So there's a lot of dynamics as far as different positions. As I said, at the start of the week, there's going to be all kinds of positions that are going to be tested. I got a chance to watch the first individual camp at FSU, on Thursday, and I got a chance to watch these coaches. Man, I got to tell you, man, I really love watching Patrick Surtain coach. Like there's not many guys. I mean, I think a lot of the coaches are really good as far as development stuff, but Pat is just so locked in on details. So certainly having Samari there. Samari is a big fan of Pat Surtain. So I think certainly there's makeup ground to do as far as going against Texas. And I think he visited Miami last weekend. But Texas is kind of the main team I hear that is probably the leader in the clubhouse right now. But I think FSU's always been a school that he's really high on. So they can certainly try to make a splash there. So there's some other ones in there we'll cover in the full update and breakdown. But as the people can see, it is a extremely loaded official visit weekend.
Well, that's an update that folks can sign up for at warchant.com if you're not already member at Warchant. It is a $1 for your first week special, and then you get to join the largest FSU fan community in the business with the best coverage of Florida State in the business. We've got recruiting this weekend, Florida State baseball, previews for Florida State football. It's all head-to-toe fantastic at warchant.com. And if you're a student, it's absolutely free. Told you that before. We're going to bounce back, Michael, to the third point, which is Florida State recruits that they want to keep. They want to make sure that their commits stay committed. As I would like to lead in with this question, though. When I see a high-profile player like Keyshawn Henderson shut it down for Houston, we all know what that is. Houston brought whatever they needed to bring to the table, and he said, all right, here's my – it literally would be this easy. Here's my price, and I won't take the visit. All right, we'll meet your price, and then shake hands, and you're done. That to me means, Michael, that Florida State has extra resources to make a splash with somebody like a Samari Matthews or somebody else. Because when I hear Texas, I hear, oh, you need to have an NIL presence. That's a big-time one. So I know we're talking about commits now that they're trying to keep. But I would imagine Florida State now has a couple of extra dollars that they were going to spend on a Keyshawn Henderson that they probably can reallocate somewhere else now to make a splash or lock down a kid.
Yeah, you can do that with running back, the guys I just covered. Those are two premier running backs. You can pick one and maybe make them a little more priority than from a value standpoint that you thought you could, because you have to wait and see what they're going to get at quarterback. You'll have Landon Duckworth visiting next weekend. Before that, I think Jaden O'Neal is also visiting. So those are ones that they'll still work on. There'll probably be more prospects to enter the picture, but yeah, it helps you allocate to different places where you feel like, hey, this is going to be valued worth that you can get them, then they'll certainly get it done. Now, as far as the commitments, you have 4-star running back Aaron. Used to be Clemens, now it's Aaron Thomas, but changed his name. But out of Mariana, now he's at Bluntstown. But he's a guy that has been really solidly committed. I still think he is. He's 4-star running back, explosive, all-purpose back, does a bit of everything. That's one that those are the kind of guys that you kind of want to see kind of how they view the program. Now they committed for a while. Get in here, get the detailed look at FSU, kind of what their viewpoint about FSU is as far as now that they've gone through the process for a little while. And then you also have Michael Arenado, who's certainly a triple legacy at FSU. I think his brother plays at Alabama. Alabama's kind of pushed a little, but from what I tell, it still seems to be in a comfortable spot. But this one where you really just got to lock down these guys and sell your future what it is. And I think that'll really tell us a lot, this weekend, kind of what these guys say, when it comes to how they view the program.
So Florida State is going to be busy for another few weeks to come after this one. A lot of things to look for this week. We now have kids that they're trying to flip. Kids that they're trying that are undecided that they want to lock down, and then keeping in-house what they already have in-house. And they might have some more resources to do it with now that Keyshawn Henderson is sticking with Houston because they brought the extra briefcase to the party. Michael Langston has all the coverage on the premium recruiting board for Florida State, and that is where you can go to get live, real-time updates from this weekend's visits. It begins tomorrow as the kids arrive on campus. You'll see that stuff on social media in terms of photos of kids arriving on campus, but then as the weekend goes along, how the visits are going, intel from the visits, coming out of those visits, all available on warchant.com and all available to you for just $1 for your first week if you want to sign up right now. Michael, anything else you want to promote before we sign off for this evening?
We got a few things coming up from, like I said, the first individual camp that happened today. Mainly, a lot of times this is more underclassmen laden. So I have a little story coming up. A few guys. There's an international kid from Canada, which is really intriguing. A trench monster guy. So that was fun. And then you had a 4-star quarterback. So I'll kind of promote that feature. We'll have a lot more coming up. As I said, my preview of this weekend will certainly be up there along with this video, so you can kind of combine it and look it over. So it'll be a lot coming up, and then we'll have full updates throughout the weekend on these official visits.
There it is. If there's any breaking news, you will find it right here on Warchant TV. If you enjoyed this content, do us a favor, hit the like button underneath the video, subscribe to the channel. It's always free, and we'll see you very, very soon right here on Warchant TV. Michael, appreciate the time as always.
Anytime.